Good morning. I feel like I know so many of you, so I don't know if that's comforting or creates more anxiety or not. My husband was a longtime member of this group, but we got busy raising a child and trying to follow her around as to all of her activities. So maybe as she graduates high school next year, he'll be able to get more involved again. But thank you for having me here. Well, we don't need to look at me. Can we turn on my PowerPoint?
Okay. Okay, just a second.
All right. So I have had a wonderful opportunity to present to you about something that I have become very passionate about, something I didn't know that I would be passionate about, but has become probably one of the most exciting things that I do in my job. So I've been the presiding judge of the family division since I was appointed in 2016. But in 2020, I was appointed to become the presiding judge of our recovery court. And that's a problem-solving court. That is, there's a statutory authorization for problem-solving courts. And I had big shoes to fill. Judge Yoder, who I see is not here, so I can give him a hard time, presided over recovery court for about 5 years. And so there were big shoes to fill when they asked me to take this position. But he seemed to have a really good sense of what was coming, because I started in February of 2020. And in March, it became the COVID recovery court. So there was no playbook, there was no script, there was no roadmap. We had to make it up as we went along to a very vulnerable population. You know, there's been ups and downs, but it's been incredible. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what we do. So the challenge is, when we talk about what is the problem, what is the challenge that brings a problem-solving court or a problem treatment court to our community? And that's the fact that we have approximately 20 million American adults, about 1 in 10, who have a substance use disorder. And here's some statistics as it relates to over the last 5 years. The amount of overdose deaths has been increasing, and that's at all socioeconomic levels. The US spends about $80 billion a year on incarceration, and there has been much research that mass incarceration for people with substance abuse disorders just doesn't work. So research also shows that about 20 to 50% of those who go into a drug court also have a co-occurring mental health disorder. And really, that in order to effectively treat individuals requires that you address both the substance use and the mental health symptoms, and you have to do that simultaneously. So that creates an added challenge to just alcohol and drug treatment resources. So the way that we've looked at the solution related to this in Illinois and nationally has been that drug courts have shown that the single most effective intervention has been criminal justice involved with recovery and stability. So, and it works because these courts have the ability to leverage the authority of the criminal justice system, and it can keep folks in a very structured environment long enough for them to have be successful in treatment. You know, outside of what we do in problem-solving courts, there's no mandate people receive substance abuse treatment or participate. But when you take this option before the court, there are things that the court can do, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Historically speaking, in our community, we have Our drug court was established in 2006. So it's been a very well-established court for over 15 years, and it's growing. It's growing in size, it's growing in number of these problems aren't going away. Our recovery court then was established in 2010, and that's the mental health component with the co-occurring mental health and substance abuse issues. And then we have a veterans court. I don't know how many of you are aware of our veterans court. This is a circuit-wide program, so it's not McLean County, it's the entire circuit. And we have a judge from Woodford County who comes over here on a weekly basis. And anytime that there is a veteran involved in the judicial system, they will look at those cases. There are VA assistants. There is plenty of money for them to have assistance. And so they're a little different than our other two problem-solving courts, because our resources are often grant funded, state and federal monies. The VA is really self-contained. So a few years back, the state of Illinois decided to standardize best practices as it relates to problem-solving courts. We have been in existence long before most any other court in the state. And so we had to maybe make some changes as to our own program that had been established, but in essence, the state of Illinois adopted many of our best practices, protocols that we had established. So in 2020, both the drug court and the recovery court were certified. I will say that it was an arduous process. There was lots of bureaucracy at the state level, as you might imagine, but Judge Gilder, very patiently, I don't know if he complained about that here in Rotary, but he very patiently did all of the hard work to get us certified. So while I dealt with pandemic, he dealt with certification, and I am very appreciative, because every 3 years we have to go through a recertification process, which includes collection of all sorts of data so that we can be accountable to the taxpayer as to the amount of money that we are able to save versus incarceration. The recidivism rate of how many people go through the program and recommit and reoffend, and how many don't. That's the number I prefer to take a look at. So we have a team approach, and all of these folks, there's a representative from all of these folks on our team. So it is a full comprehensive team approach with the probation department, state's attorney, there's a public defender involved. We have a jail representative. Oftentimes these folks are just sitting, lingering in our county jail with substance abuse and mental health issues. And so they sometimes know the folks who come into our program more than anyone else. We have Center for Human Services, Chestnut. We have a representative from Normal Police Department and Bloomington Police Department. We're a little bit different than drug court in that because we do have the two police departments on our team, and they're vital. You know, as we're talking about mental health in our community, as we're talking about law enforcement, I can't tell you how proud I am of how our law enforcement goes out into the community to talk to those with mental health, to de-escalate situations that can become much more difficult. So we're very appreciative of that representation on our team. So what happens is we start with a screening process, and anyone can make a referral. So that is community members, family members, attorneys, and the like can make a referral. And I think that's really important for our community to understand, because, you know, I think many of us have a family member or have a friend, you know, who has a child or another family member or a loved one who you see are experiencing either mental health, substance abuse, maybe both, and you know, it becomes hard to know what resources are available. And if they get entwined in the justice system, it almost feels hopeless. And so understanding that from a community, and that's really why we're out giving presentations in the community, is to make people aware that this program exists, because that is how we're going to be successful in this program. But I would say primarily referrals come from public defenders, private attorneys, who are looking at the options available for their clients. So we go through a pretty arduous process to make sure that we're taking the appropriate actions. You know, one of the issues are, you know, there's a lot of responsibility that goes with releasing somebody into the community to give them treatment and resources, and being able to account if they reoffend, if they do something when they're under our watch. So we scrutinize these cases through a screening process that starts with the referral. And our probation department will do a risk assessment related to the individual that's been referred, determine whether or not they have diagnosable mental health issues that have, you know, been documented, and determine if they qualify. From there, we have a legal screening. So our state's attorney's office representative will do a screening. They'll go through, look at the police reports, look through leads, see if there's any outstanding warrants, if there's anything that's in their criminal background that would make them ineligible to participate with our program. So if they get through those two hurdles, we go through a clinician screening. So now we're talking about treatment with Center of Human Services and Chestnut. And they're absolutely great. They have so much history on folks as to what their background, how many times they've tried treatment and been unsuccessful, and what their diagnoses are. So they do a risk need assessment as well. And then we have a team discussion. You can see our whole team has a discussion as to whether this is an appropriate fit for our group. And I'll talk a little bit about exclusionary factors and things that go into it, especially now in COVID, whether or not we can provide some, if we have the resources available to us to assist. And then the participant is admitted into our program. And so we want to make sure that we are taking the responsibility of protecting the public while also providing treatment to the participant. So a little bit of a comparison is our target population. Drug court, you can see, is high risk, high need offenders who have a substance abuse issue, and they're involved in a felony level charge, and they'd otherwise be sentenced to the Department of Corrections. Recovery court is a moderate to high or high risk, high need. That means if they are not a high risk, high need, they're low risk, low need, there may be other programs that they're eligible for. So these are the hardest, most challenging cases that we face. And a difference between recovery court and drug court also is that the mental illness has to be related to the criminal offense that they are being charged with. So because somebody has a bipolar disorder, but they stole a candy bar from Casey's, for example, that may not be related to their mental health issue. So oftentimes these are higher magnitude. We have lots of mental health issues that involve some domestic violence between family members, and kind of survival type of non-med compliant type of charges. Eligibility requirement, just in comparison, is a little bit different as well. And I've highlighted what I just talked. There's a causal connection between the mental illness and the crime. All right, there are some exclusionary factors. So if there's a conviction for a violent crime, if they're not willing to participate, if there's been a crime of violence within the past 10 years, if it's not probationable, or they'd be ineligible for probation, though they're excluded. That's what the state's attorney is screening for, to determine if they're legally eligible. So other factors considered. The statute has taken away some of the judge's determination. And I guess I didn't say this before, once there's a team discussion about allowing somebody in, ultimately it's the judge who makes the final decision as to whether they come in or not. And the state has the ability to object to somebody coming into the program. and then the participant has the ability to go in front of the judge that they're assigned, and that judge may still assign. That's called a kind of a blind plea. You're taking a plea asking for the relief of recovery court. But in the past, we have had the ability to look at other factors such as, are they an active gang member? The statute has taken that out of the statute for both drug court and recovery court. But, you know, I call it a soft consideration because one of the most important things for me to consider in bringing someone into our court is there the potential for violence against our team. When we're sending people to CHS, to Chestnut, when I'm sending probation officers on home visits, I need to consider their safety. CHS doesn't have security and metal detectors. Chestnut does not. So I have to consider that. And again, active gang membership creates some concerns about that. Are they a confidential source? Are they working with police to identify other potential trafficking of drugs, etc.? That puts a lot of our clientele at risk. It puts the confidential source at risk, and so that's something that we would consider. For example, another is potential for violence. I'm sure you all recall when we had some looting cases here last year, and Normal Police came to us on some participants and said, look, this is somebody who started this, was throwing water bottles at police vehicles, was creating havoc for us. And the concern is, will this person be able to respect the authority of our law enforcement, of the treatment? Because I'm not sure, whether or not they are suitable to be as in part of our program. But that's not an end all be all. It's just a consideration. Those are soft considerations. So some strengths that we have in our program. We have this tremendous coordination of mental health providers. We have Chestnut, CHS working together. There's been a lot of talk and work through our county and our county board highlighting mental health. We have some tax revenue devoted to that, and a lot of that has gone to help the coordination of those services. The other one is we have what are called recovery coaches. These are people who are former addicts, and they come alongside our participants. They talk about programs. They'll take them to an AA meeting or an NA meeting. They'll get them a ride to a service. Most of our folks do not have transportation. They make sure that they go to their psychiatric services, their doctor's appointments. They identify health needs, hygiene needs, housing needs, and they really become an advocate for the participant. But they also challenge the participant to take advantage of what this program has to offer. Some of our challenges are we have a lack of psychiatric providers in our community, and I think that's nationwide. One of the things that COVID has helped us with is this identify the ability to have some telehealth psychiatric services. So, on one hand, we need to draw more psychiatrists and psychologists here to our community. We have some nurse practitioners who are coming, and that has been immensely valuable to our team. But we just lack that service, lack the ability. Sometimes our folks are waiting 60, 90 days to have a med check. When we see their behavior, there needs to be some modification to their meds now based upon the behaviors that we're seeing. Housing. I'm sure we've all in this community heard about our housing crisis. That is probably one of the most tragic situations that we have, because there have been participants we haven't been able to help because there's just no viable housing option for them. We use Salvation Army, we use Home Sweet Home, there's Oxford House, there are some housing options, but usually the list is very long. They have to wait. I currently have a participant who is pregnant and homeless. And, you know, some of the requirements of recovery court are very much secondary to just survival. And because there's mental health issues or criminal backgrounds, sometimes Salvation Army, Home Sweet Home can't take them, won't take them. They're banned. We have a huge ban. So we try to work with other agencies, sometimes get emergency funds to get them into a hotel for a few days until we can coordinate a place for them to go. And often they've been alienated from their family, or sometimes their family is part of the problem, part of their addiction problem, based upon their historic. Employment, obviously, these folks now have felony records, so getting employment, getting them to work. We have some local employers who are fantastic to work with and will give opportunities, but obviously that's a short leash to have on folks. And you know, you have a relapse or you don't show up to work because you've had a jail sanction and you've lost your job. Another challenge we have right now is staffing. Chestnut is down to one caseworker. We've had 5, so we don't have the resources and staffing. You know, we have people coming to Chestnut or CHS for a short period of time, and then they're going off somewhere else, something that provides better paid benefits. I think it's the COVID phenomenon that I think many of us are seeing. And then COVID-19. It is also a challenge because you know, it's an excuse not to come to court. I don't feel good. I can't be there today. So, you know, we've had to do Zoom calls, have them participate in that way. So I'm going to speed up just a little bit because I can see my time is getting short. But in essence, there are expectations. We have 5 phases, and we have expectations of the participants in each phase. And so we go through an orientation process. Generally, they're pretty much a hot mess at that time. We're talking about treatment, basic hygiene. They've never been accountable to anybody. They have no basic life skills. They don't know how to be somewhere on time. They don't know what that means. For them, success is, well, I showed up. I'm here. I haven't used. So we have to take them where they're at there. You know, oftentimes they'll come into the program and their sole motivation is staying out of prison. We hope over time that motivation changes, but they're overwhelmed by the amount of work and the structure that we provide them. But once they get into the engagement, the 2 biggest issues that we look for are, can they follow a calendar? Oh, I forgot that appointment. Oh, you know, oh, I didn't know I needed to be there at that time. So we give them a calendar every week and tell them, keep this with you. They might get called for daily screens. They have to show up. They have to be ready at any time. And can they take their medications as prescribed? Huge med compliance issues. So we use things like daily med checks. They come to probation, they show their meds, you know, they take their meds in front of the probation officer so that we can document what they're doing. After that, they move into phase 3, where we're really looking to try to establish some stable housing. But oftentimes in phase 3, the honeymoon is over. They often linger here. We may start to see relapse, lack of med compliance. And I mean, I won't lie, it's usually in the stage that I start to think about some participants, I don't know that they're going to make it. I don't know that they're going to make it through this program. But miracles happen, and they move on to the next phase, and the expectations get much higher as to what's required of them, of being on time, going to their appointments. We ask them to start thinking about the future, start looking at their goals, start mentoring, and that's kind of in combination with the last phase. Start looking at what the future holds for them. And then we have graduations, and it's absolutely probably one of the best opportunities that I have seen is when you see somebody who has gone through this, you've been in the ups and downs, you feel like a parent to them, and they go up there and they graduate, and they're talking about how this program saved their lives. They talk about how they didn't want to do it. They wanted to do things their way. They thought they could get things past us, but once they submitted, they were able to be successful. This is just an example of incentives and rewards. They come to court each week. They talk to me, and we give some incentives for a good week. They might get a cabinet reward. They might get a pass from having to come in early for a drug screen. And then we do therapeutic adjustments. We might have them write papers. We might have them go to more, twice a day daily meetings if there's a relapse. We really work, if you see, I talk a lot about time management calendars. That's my number one violation, is trying to teach folks to be somewhere on time and to be where they're supposed to be. And then sanctions, we go from low to moderate, or from low to high sanction. A high sanction might be a jail sanction. So you're going into jail for overnight. You might be there for a week. There's 180 days when they plea into this court that a court can use as a jail sanction. We try to use that infrequently, and it's the highest magnitude sanctions, but oftentimes we're just an admonishment from the court that we have them write papers. We have them come in for daily screens. We might have them do community service work. Not really going to talk about what we dealt with COVID. So as it relates to how this works, I would encourage you, we meet every Thursday at 1 p.m. In my courtroom on 4B. Oh, well, it used to be 4A. I guess I didn't change that, but it's open to the public. Graduations are open to the public to come and see what we're doing, because it's astonishing. It's astonishing what happens on the day-to-day, the good and the bad. They hold each other accountable. When someone's getting a sanction, they kind of feel bad for them and they'll talk to them. When they get a reward, they all clap for each other. They come and support each other, even on weeks that they don't need to participate. We have a weekly staffing at noon where all of our team members come together and determine, and we talk about each individual. And that's closed to the public, but the court process itself is open to the public. I tried to get some statistics for you. My problem-solving coordinator was out of town last week, and he was called to federal jury duty yesterday. But I do know that in the last year, with COVID, with our lack of resources, with our inability to take at capacity all that we are able to take, we have graduated 11 participants, and we've only had one who has reoffended, and it was a minor misdemeanor action that didn't involve us having to get re-involved, but we were also able to wrap that person with some community resources in order to hopefully not see them reoffend again. So I think I am out of time. I had a video, but it's 4 minutes long. So I thank you for your time today and your attention. And I would love to see any of you come join us for a session at Recovery Court. Thanks.